The rain fell in sheets, drumming against the cracked pavement of Willow Street, where Ethan stood frozen, clutching a tiny hand. 3 years ago, he'd sworn he'd never let go of her. Not of hope. Not of the life he'd clawed from the wreckage of his brother's absence. Now, under the flickering streetlight, he saw a ghost, his twin, Caleb, stepping out of the shadows, eyes hollow but unmistakable. Ethan's heart lurched. Caleb, his mirror image, his other half, had vanished without a word 4 years ago, leaving Ethan to raise Lily alone. The little girl in his arms, now 3, stirred softly, oblivious to the storm brewing between the brothers. Ethan's mind raced danger, relief, and a bone-deep ache collided. Why now? Why after all this time? They'd grown up in Willow Creek, a sleepy Ohio town where everyone knew your name and your secrets. Ethan and Caleb, identical twins, had been inseparable, their bond a quiet rebellion against a world that didn't always understand them. Both gay, both fiercely protective of each other, they dreamed of escaping to a bigger city, maybe Chicago, where they could live openly. But dreams had a way of unraveling. For years ago, Caleb had been the charismatic one, the dreamer with a laugh that could light up a room. Ethan was the anchor, steady and pragmatic, content to follow Caleb's lead. They'd been living together in a cramped apartment above a diner, working odd jobs and planning their future, when Lily came into their lives. She was the daughter of their cousin, Sarah, who died in a car accident, leaving behind a 6-month-old with no one else to claim her. Ethan and Caleb had taken her in, no question. They'd promised to raise her together. But Caleb couldn't handle it. The late nights, the crying, the weight of responsibility, it broke something in him. One morning, Ethan woke to find Caleb's bed empty. A scrawled note on the counter. "I'm sorry. I can't do this." No explanation. No goodbye. Just gone. Ethan had been 24, barely able to afford rent, let alone raise a child alone. But he did. He worked double shifts at the diner, learned to braid hair, and sang lullabies off-key to soothe Lily's tears. He'd built a life for them, fragile but real. Now, Caleb was back, standing 10 feet away, soaked to the skin. "Ethan," he said, voice rough, like he'd smoked a pack a day since he left. "I didn't know how to come back sooner." Ethan's grip on Lily tightened. "You don't get to just show up," he hissed, his voice low to keep from waking her. "Not after what you did." Caleb's eyes dropped to Lily, and something cracked in his expression. Regret. Maybe. Or shame. "I know I messed up. But I'm here now. I want to make it right." Ethan laughed, bitter and sharp. "Make it right? You left us, Caleb. You left her." He stepped back, the rain masking the tremble in his voice. "What do you want? Why are you here?" Caleb hesitated, then reached into his jacket, pulling out a crumpled envelope. "There's something you need to know. About me. About why I left." Ethan's stomach twisted. He wanted to turn and walk away, to protect Lily from whatever storm Caleb was dragging back into their lives. But something in his brother's eyes, desperate, broken, held him there. He'd always been able to read Caleb, even when no one else could. And right now, Caleb was scared. "Let's get out of the rain," Ethan said finally, nodding toward the diner across the street. It was late, the neon sign flickering, but it was open. He didn't trust Caleb. Not anymore. But he couldn't walk away. Not yet. Inside, the diner smelled of coffee and grease, a familiar comfort. Ethan settled Lily into a booth, her tiny body curled against his jacket. Caleb sat across from them, hands fidgeting, the envelope still clutched tight. The waitress, An older woman named Marla, who'd known them since they were kids, raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. She poured coffee and left them alone. "Start talking," Ethan said, his voice flat but heavy with years of unanswered questions. Caleb took a breath, his eyes darting to Lily, then back to Ethan. "I didn't leave because of her. Were you?" "I left because I was drowning." He paused, his fingers tracing the edge of the envelope. "I got mixed up in some bad stuff, Ethan. I didn't want it touching you or Lily." Ethan's jaw clenched. "Bad stuff? What? Drugs? Gambling? What the hell are you talking about?" Caleb shook his head. "Not that simple. I got involved with someone. Someone dangerous." His voice cracked. "I thought I could handle it, but I couldn't. I had to disappear to keep you safe." Ethan stared, disbelief warring with the old instinct to protect his brother. "You're telling me you left us for some guy?" "Caleb, we were a family. You don't just walk away from that." "I know," Caleb whispered. "But I'm back because it's over. And because..." He slid the envelope across the table. "You need to see this." Ethan didn't move. The envelope sat there, a ticking bomb between them. Whatever was inside, it was the reason Caleb had come back. And Ethan wasn't sure he was ready for it. The envelope felt heavier than it should, its edges worn and creased, as if Caleb had carried it for years. Ethan's fingers hovered over it, his heart pounding with a mix of dread and curiosity. Lily's soft breathing anchored him, a reminder of what was at stake. He tore it open, pulling out a single sheet of papera handwritten letter, the ink smudged but legible. The words hit him like a punch. "Caleb, if you're reading this, I'm already gone. I'm sorry for what I dragged you into. Tell Ethan the truth. He deserves to know." It was signed Nate. "Who's Nate?" Ethan's voice was sharp, cutting through the diner's low hum. Caleb flinched, his eyes fixed on the table. "Nate was everything," Caleb said, barely above a whisper. "We met a few months before I left. He was older, intense, the kind of guy who made you feel like you were the only one in the room. I fell hard." Ethan's chest tightened. He'd never heard Caleb talk like this raw, unguarded. "So you left us for some fling? That's your excuse?" "It wasn't a fling," Caleb snapped, then softened. "Nate was in trouble. Deep trouble. He owed money to some bad people, loan sharks. Dealers. I don't even know the full scope. He didn't tell me at first. By the time I figured it out, I was in too deep." Ethan leaned back, processing. "You're saying you left to protect us from his mess?" Caleb nodded, his face pale. "They came after him. Ethan. Broke into his apartment. Trashed it. I was there. They saw me. Thought I was part of it. Nate told me to run. To keep you and Lily out of it. So I did." The story spilled out in fragments. Caleb had fled to Chicago, then Detroit, always looking over his shoulder. Nate had stayed behind, promising to fix things, but he'd disappeared too. Caleb had spent years piecing together what happened, tracking Nate's trail, only to learn he'd been killed a hit and run that wasn't an accident. The letter was all Caleb had left, delivered by a mutual friend months after Nate's death. Ethan's hands shook as he folded the letter. "You could have told me. I would have helped you. You had Lily," Caleb said. "I couldn't drag you into that world. I thought if I stayed away, you'd both be safe." Ethan wanted to scream, to shake Caleb until the years of pain poured out. But Lily stirred, murmuring in her sleep, and he swallowed his anger. "So why come back now?" Caleb's eyes met his, steady for the first time. Because I found out who's behind it. The people Nate O'Deary's still out there. And they know about you. The words landed like a blow. Ethan's mind raced, picturing Lily, their little apartment, the life he'd built. What do you mean? They know about me. They think I have something of Nate's, Caleb said. Something valuable. I don't. But they don't believe that. They've been watching you. Ethan. I came back to warn you. Ethan's blood ran cold. He glanced at Lily, her tiny hand clutching his sleeve. You brought this to our door. After all this time. I didn't have a choice, Caleb said, voice breaking. I'm trying to fix it. I swear. The diner door chimed, and Ethan's head snapped up. A man in a leather jacket stood in the doorway, his gaze scanning the room before locking on their booth. Ethan's stomach dropped. Caleb, he whispered. Who's that? Caleb turned, his face draining of color. We need to go? Now. Ethan scooped Lily into his arms, his heart hammering. The man didn't move, just watched, his expression unreadable. Ethan grabbed the envelope and followed Caleb toward the back exit, the diner's warmth giving way to the cold, wet night. They slipped into the alley, rain stinging their faces. Caleb led the way, moving fast, his breath visible in the chilly air. They're not supposed to be here yet, he muttered, more to himself than Ethan. Who are they? Ethan demanded, clutching Lily tighter. She whimpered, sensing his tension. People you don't want to meet, Caleb said. Keep moving. They ducked behind a dumpster, the alley narrow and shadowed. Ethan's mind spun how had his quiet life, his nights of bedtime stories and diner shifts, turned into this. He wanted to trust Caleb, but the years of abandonment gnawed at him. Still, the fear in his brother's eyes was real. Headlights cut through the rain, a black SUV creeping down the alley. Caleb grabbed Ethan's arm, pulling him toward a side street. We can't go back to your place, he said. Not until I figure out what they want. Ethan stopped, forcing Caleb to face him. No. You don't get to call the shots. You tell me everything right now or I'm done. Caleb's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Okay. But not here. There's a safe place, a friend's house outside town. We can talk there. Ethan hesitated, torn between his instincts and the brother he'd once trusted with his life. The SUV's engine growled closer. He made his choice. Lead the way. The friend's house was a rundown cabin on the edge of Willow Creek, surrounded by dense woods that swallowed the moonlight. Ethan held Lily close as they approached, her warmth grounding him against the chaos. Caleb knocked twice, and a woman in her 30s stall, with short-cropped hair and wary eyes, opened the door. You're late, she said, glancing at Ethan and Lily. This them? Jess, this is Ethan and Lily, Caleb said, ushering them inside. The cabin smelled of cedar and coffee, a faint comfort. Jess locked the door behind them, her movements quick and practiced. Ethan set Lily on a worn couch, where she curled up, still half asleep. He turned to Caleb, his voice low but fierce. No more half-truths. Tell me who's after you and what they want. Caleb sank into a chair, exhaustion etched into his face. Jess leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching them both. It started with Nate's debts, Caleb said. He borrowed money to open a bar in Chicago. The people he borrowed from, theory, not the kind you say no to. When he couldn't pay, they came after him. And me, because I was with him. Ethan's mind flashed to the man in the diner, the SUV in the alley. And now they think you have something of his. Caleb nodded. Nate had a ledger, a record of every deal, every payment. It's worth a lot to the right people. They think I took it when I ran. Did you? Ethan asked, his voice sharp. No, Caleb said, meeting his eyes. I don't have it. But they don't believe me. And they know about you and Lily because I mentioned you once, when I thought I could trust Nate. Ethan's fists clenched. You told a criminal about us. I didn't know he was a criminal then. Caleb snapped. I was in love. Ethan. I screwed up. Jess cut in, her voice calm but firm. They're not just after the ledger. They want leverage. You and Lily are that leverage. Ethan's heart sank. He looked at Lily, her tiny chest rising and falling, oblivious to the danger. So what do we do? Jess handed Caleb a burner phone. We've got a contact in Chicago who might know where the ledger is. If we can find it, we can trade it for your safety. Ethan shook his head. You're trusting some shady contact. How do you even know these people? Caleb. Jess helped me when I was on the run. Caleb said. She's clean now, but she used to run with Nate's crowd. She knows how they think. Ethan didn't like it, but he had no better plan. Fine. But Lily stays out of this. I'm not letting her get hurt. Agreed, Caleb said. We'll keep her here with Jess. They won't find this place. Jess nodded. I've got supplies. Security. She'll be safe. Ethan knelt beside Lily, brushing a curl from her face. Leaving her felt wrong, but staying in Willow Creek wasn't safe either. Okay, he said finally. But if anything happens to her, Caleb, I'll never forgive you. Caleb's face tightened, but he didn't argue. They spent the night planning, Jess mapping out routes to Chicago, Caleb recounting every detail he could remember about Nate's contacts. Ethan listened, his mind split between protecting Lily and grappling with Caleb's return. The brother he'd loved, the one who'd betrayed him, was now his only ally. By dawn, they were on the road, the burner phone their only lifeline. Chicago's skyline loomed hours later, a jagged silhouette against the gray sky. Ethan's stomach churned as they pulled into a seedy neighborhood, all cracked sidewalks and boarded-up storefronts. Caleb parked outside a dive bar, its neon sign flickering. Stay sharp, Caleb said, handing Ethan a switchblade. Just in case. Ethan stared at the blade, then at his brother. I'm not a fighter, Caleb. I'm a dad. I know, Caleb said softly. But you're tougher than you think. Inside, the bar was dim, reeking of stale beer. A man in his 40s, broad-shouldered with a scar across his cheek, waited at a corner table. You're late, he said, echoing Jess's words from the night before. Vince, Caleb said, sliding into a chair. This is Ethan. Tell us what you know. Vince leaned forward, his voice low. The ledger's in play. Word is, it's with Nate's old partner, a guy named Marcus. He's holed up downtown, but he's paranoid. You want it, you'll need to move fast. Ethan's pulse quickened. And if we get it, they'll leave us alone. Vince shrugged. Maybe. Depends on how bad they want you dead. Caleb's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, the bar's door swung open. Two men stepped inside, their eyes locking on Ethan and Caleb. Vince cursed under his breath. You were followed. Ethan's heart slammed against his ribs as the two men approached, their steps deliberate, eyes cold. The bar's chatter faded, replaced by a tense silence. Caleb grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the back exit. But Vince hissed, Don't. They'll have someone out there. Trapped. Ethan's mind raced. He wasn't built for this confrontations. Shadowy deals. He was the guy who packed Lily's lunches, who read her stories about dragons. But now, his brother's past was a noose tightening around them both. Sit, one of the men said, a wiry guy with a snake tattoo curling up his neck. His partner, heavier and bald, stood by the door, blocking their escape. Caleb hesitated, then slid back into the booth, motioning for Ethan to do the same. We're not here to fight, Caleb said, his voice steady despite the sweat beading on his forehead. We just want to talk. Snake Tattoo smirked, pulling up a chair. Talk? Huh. You've got a lot of nerve, showing up after what you pulled. I don't have the ledger, Caleb said. I never did. The man leaned closer, his breath sour. Then why's Marcus so sure you do? He's been tearing Chicago apart looking for you. Ethan's stomach churned. Marcus. The name from Vince's tip. Nate's old partner. What does Marcus want with us? He asked, unable to keep quiet. The man's eyes flicked to Ethan, sizing him up. You're the brother, right? The one playing daddy. He laughed, low and cruel. Marcus don't care about you. But he thinks Caleb's got what's his. And he'll go through anyone to get it. Caleb's hand tightened on the table. Tell Marcus I'll meet him. Alone. Just tell me where. The man studied Caleb, then nodded to his partner. We'll pass it along. But you better show up with something worth his time. He stood, tossing a crumpled napkin on the table. Written in Sharpie, an address and a time: midnight. Tomorrow. As the men left, Vince exhaled. You're lucky they didn't drag you out of here. Ethan glared at Caleb. This is your plan. Walking into a trap. It's not a trap if we're prepared, Caleb said, but his voice lacked conviction. He turned to Vince. Can you get us to Marcus before they do? Vince rubbed his scar, thinking. Maybe. But you'll need backup. Marcus isn't some street thugs connected. You screw this up, you're not just risking yourselves. That kid of yours is on the line too. Ethan's blood ran cold. He grabbed Caleb's arm, pulling him close. You swore Lily would be safe. If anything happens to her, it won't. Caleb cut in, his eyes fierce. I'll fix this, Ethan. I owe you that. They left the bar, slipping into the night. Vince promised to arrange a meeting with Marcus, but Ethan's trust was fraying. Caleb's promises felt like echoes of the ones he'd broken years ago. Still, they had no choice but to keep moving. Back at the cabin, Jess was waiting, her face grim. Lily was awake, coloring at the kitchen table, oblivious to the tension. Ethan knelt beside her, his heart aching at her innocence. Hey, kiddo, he said, forcing a smile. Draw me a dragon. Okay. Lily giggled, scribbling green scales. Ethan watched her, the weight of Caleb's secrets pressing down. He couldn't lose her, not to Marcus, not to anyone. That night, as Lily slept, Ethan and Caleb sat with Jess, planning. Vince had texted a location, a warehouse downtown, neutral ground. Marcus would meet them, but he'd expect the ledger. Without it, they'd need something else to bargain with. I've got an idea, Jess said, pulling out a laptop. Nate wasn't stupid. He hid things, digital backups, encrypted files. If we can find a trace of the ledger, even a fake, we might buy time. Ethan frowned. You're saying we bluff? Exactly, Jess said. Marcus doesn't know what Caleb has or doesn't have. We make him think we're holding the real thing. Caleb nodded, But Ethan saw the doubt in his eyes. And if he calls the bluff? Ethan asked. Jess didn't flinch. Then you better hope you're faster than his trigger finger. The next day, they prepared. Jess hacked into old email accounts Nate had used, piecing together fragments of date nothing concrete, but enough to create a convincing decoy. Ethan watched, torn between admiration and fear. This wasn't his world, but he was in it now, for Lily. As midnight approached, they drove to the warehouse, the city's lights fading behind them. Ethan's hands shook, but he thought of Lily's dragon drawing, tucked in his pocket. He'd make it back to her. He had to. The warehouse loomed, its windows dark. Caleb parked, his face pale but resolute. Stay close, he said. And whatever happens, don't let them see you're scared. Ethan nodded, his heart pounding. They stepped inside, the air thick with dust and danger. The warehouse was a cavern of shadows, its concrete floor littered with broken crates. Ethan's breath caught as he followed Caleb inside, the switchblade heavy in his pocket. A single bulb hung from the ceiling, casting a harsh glow over a man in a tailored suit. Marcus, flanked by two armed men. You're late, Marcus said, his voice smooth but edged with menace. He was older than Ethan expected, maybe 50, with sharp features and eyes that missed nothing. Where's my ledger? Caleb stepped forward, holding up a USB drive. Jess's decoy. Right here. But we talk terms first. Marcus's lips curled. Terms. You don't make demands. Kid. Hand it over. And maybe I let your brother and his kid walk. Ethan's stomach twisted. He glanced at Caleb, who didn't flinch. You get the ledger when you guarantee our safety, Caleb said. All of us. Marcus laughed, a cold sound that echoed off the walls. You think you're in control. I know you, Caleb. You're the runner. Always have been. His eyes flicked to Ethan. But you're the one who stayed. Raising that girl alone. Gotta say, I respect that. Don't talk about her, Ethan snapped, his voice sharper than he intended. Marcus raised an eyebrow, amused. Touchy, Marcus said. But here's the deal, I get the ledger. You get to live. Simple. Caleb hesitated, then tossed the USB drive. One of Marcus's men caught it, plugging it into a laptop. Ethan held his breath, praying Jess's fake held up. The man frowned, typing furiously, then shook his head. It's encrypted. Could be legit, but I can't tell. Marcus's eyes narrowed. You playing games, Caleb? It's real, Caleb said, his voice steady. Nate's codes are on there. You just need the key. Marcus leaned forward. And where's the key? Caleb swallowed. I don't have it. Nate never told me. The air shifted, heavy with threat. Marcus nodded to his men, who raised their guns. Ethan's heart stopped. Wait, he shouted, stepping in front of Caleb. You want the key? We'll find it. Just give us time. Marcus studied him, then smirked. You've got guts. All right, 24 hours. Bring me the key, or I come for the kid. He tossed a burner phone to Caleb. Don't try running. I know where you live. They left the warehouse, Ethan's legs shaking as they reached the car. You lied to him, he hissed at Caleb. There's no key, is there? Caleb gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. I don't know. Nate never mentioned one. But we have to try. Back at the cabin, Jess was waiting, Lily asleep in her arms. Ethan took his daughter, holding her tight, her warmth steadying him. We're out of our depth, he told Caleb. We need help. Jess agreed. I've got a friend, ex-cop, who might know someone in Chicago PD. If we can get them involved, we might have a shot. Caleb shook his head. Cops won't help. Marcus has people everywhere. Then what? Ethan demanded. We can't keep running. Caleb's eyes met his, raw with guilt. I'll turn myself in. Tell Marcus I'll take Nate's debt. Whatever it takes to keep you and Lily safe. Ethan stared, torn between anger and something softer love. Maybe. Or the ghost of it. You don't get to play martyr now. We do this together. They spent the night digging through Nate's old emails, searching for any clue about the key. Jess found a cryptic message, the keys where we first met. You'll know. It was dated a week before Nate's death. Where'd you meet him? Ethan asked. Caleb's face softened. A rare vulnerability. A bar in Wicker Park. We danced all night. He said it was the first time he felt free. Ethan nodded. A plan forming. Then we go there. Tomorrow. The next day, they left Lily with Jess and drove to Wicker Park. The bar was still there. A neon-lit dive called the Blue Note. Inside, it was packed. Music thumping. Ethan scanned the room, feeling out of place among the carefree crowd. Caleb led him to a back corner, where a faded mural covered the Walla skyline with a single star. Nate loved this spot, Caleb said, tracing the star. Said it was his North Star. Ethan's eyes caught on a loose brick beneath the mural. He knelt, prying it free, revealing a small metal box. Inside was a slip of paper with a string of numbers code. Is this it? Ethan asked, heart racing. Caleb nodded, eyes wide. It has to be. But as they turned to leave, the crowd parted, and Snake Tattoo from the bar stood in their path, grinning. Nice find, boys. Ethan's grip tightened on the metal box, the code inside their only leverage. Snake Tattoo stepped closer, his grin predatory, the bar's neon lights glinting off his eyes. The crowd pulsed around them, oblivious to the danger. Hand it over, the man said, his voice low but commanding. Two more figures emerged from the shadows Marcus's men, cutting off their escape. Caleb stepped in front of Ethan, his stance protective. You want it? You go through me. Ethan's heart pounded. He wasn't a fighter, but he'd do anything for Lily. He slipped the box into his pocket, whispering, Caleb, don't do this alone. Before Caleb could respond, Snake Tattoo lunged, grabbing Caleb's arm. The bar's noise swallowed Caleb's shout as he twisted free, shoving the man back. Ethan acted on instinct, swinging a chair at one of the other men, who stumbled but didn't fall. The crowd finally noticed, screams erupting as people scattered. Run! Caleb yelled, pushing Ethan toward the back exit. They bolted through the kitchen, pots clattering as they shoved past startled cooks. The men were close behind, their footsteps heavy. Outside, the alley was dark, rain slicked. Ethan clutched the box, his lungs burning as they sprinted toward the car. Caleb fumbled with the keys, cursing, as headlights flared behind them. A black SUV screeched to a stop, blocking their path. Get in, Caleb shouted, diving into the driver's seat. Ethan scrambled in, the box digging into his thigh. The SUV roared after them as Caleb floored it, weaving through Chicago's narrow streets. Where are we going? Ethan gasped, glancing back. The SUV was gaining, its lights blinding. Jess's contact, Caleb said, swerving around a corner. The ex-cop. If we can get to him, he might help. Ethan's mind raced. The code in the box, was it really the key Marcus wanted? Or was it another dead end? He couldn't shake the image of Lily. Safe for now, but vulnerable if they failed. They ditched the car in a crowded parking lot, slipping into a nearby diner to catch their breath. Caleb texted Jess, who sent the ex-cop's address, a small office in Logan Square. His name's Ryan, Caleb said. He's clean, but he knows Marcus's operation. The office was a cramped space above a laundromat, the air thick with cigarette smoke. Ryan, a grizzled man in his 50s, sized them up as they entered. "You two look like trouble," he said, leaning back in his chair. "What's the deal?" Caleb explained, showing him the code. Ryan's eyes narrowed as he studied it. This could be the key to Nate's ledger. Marcus has been after it for years. Names, dates, deals that could bring down his whole network. "So we give it to him," Ethan said, "and he leaves us alone." Ryan shook his head. "Marcus doesn't negotiate. You give him this, he'll kill you to tie up loose ends." Ethan's stomach dropped. "Then what do we do?" "Use it," Ryan said. "Get this to the feds. They've been building a case against Marcus for years. This could be the break they need." Caleb hesitated. "And if we do that, what happens to us? To Lily?" Ryan leaned forward, his voice low. "You disappear. New names, new lives, witness protection. It's your only shot." Ethan's heart sank. He'd built a life for Lila, playdates, preschool, a home. Starting over meant ripping that away. But staying meant risking her life. He looked at Caleb, who nodded, his face grim but resolute. "Okay," Ethan said. "How do we do this?" Ryan gave them a contact at the FBI, a woman named Agent Carter. They left the office, the code burning a hole in Ethan's pocket. But as they stepped outside, the black SUV was waiting, its engine idling. "They found us," Caleb whispered, grabbing Ethan's arm. "Run." They darted down an alley, the SUV's tires screeching behind them. Ethan's legs burned, his mind fixed on Lily. They couldn't keep running forever. They needed a plan now. Caleb pulled him into a crowded street market, the chaos offering cover. "We split up," he said. "You get to Carter. I'll draw them off." "No way," Ethan snapped. "We're in this together." Caleb's eyes softened, a flicker of the brother Ethan remembered. "I owe you, Ethan. Let me do this." Before Ethan could argue, Caleb shoved the burner phone into his hand and sprinted toward the SUV, shouting to draw their attention. Ethan hesitated, then ran the other way, the code in his pocket, his heart breaking. Ethan's shoes slapped against the pavement, the market's noise fading as he sprinted toward Agent Carter's office. The burner phone buzzed in his hand. Jess, texting coordinates for a safe house where Lily was waiting. His chest ached, not just from running, but from leaving Caleb behind. His brother was risking everything, and Ethan hated how it felt like a debt he could never repay. The FBI field office was a gray building tucked between skyscrapers, its entrance unmarked. Ethan slipped inside, breathless, and asked for Agent Carter. A woman in her 40s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, met him in a stark meeting room. "You're Ethan," she said, glancing at the box in his hand. Ryan called. "Show me what you've got." Ethan handed her the code, explaining everything. Nate, Marcus, the ledger, Caleb's sacrifice. Carter's face remained unreadable as she studied the numbers. "If this unlocks the ledger, it's enough to bury Marcus," she said. "But we need the ledger itself." "Where is it?" "I don't know," Ethan admitted. his voice hoarse. Caleb thought it was with Marcus's old partner. But we only found this. Carter nodded, typing into a laptop. We've been tracking Marcus for years. If you're telling the truth, we can protect you. But you need to bring your brother in. He's a loose end. Ethan's stomach twisted. He's out there now, drawing them off so I could get here. You have to help him. Carter's eyes softened. Just a fraction. We'll try. Give me his last location. Ethan relayed the market's coordinates, his hands shaking. Carter dispatched a team, promising to keep him updated. But as the hours dragged on, no news came. Ethan paced the room, picturing Caleb cornered, alone. He'd spent years resenting his brother, but now all he wanted was to see him safe. Finally, Carter returned, her face grim. We found the SUV. Empty. Your brother's gone. Ethan's knees buckled. Gone? What do you mean, gone? No body. No blood, Carter said. He's either hiding or they took him. We're sweeping the area. Ethan's mind spun. Caleb couldn't be gone, not again. He grabbed the burner phone, texting Jess, Caleb's missing. Keep Lily safe. Her reply was instant. She's okay. Stay strong. Carter offered him a chair, but he couldn't sit. What now? He asked. We use the code, she said. If it's real, we can access the ledger remotely. Marcus's network is digital bank accounts, shell companies. We crack this. We cripple him. They worked through the night, Carter's tech team decoding the numbers. By dawn, they had a HIDA server linked to Nate's old accounts. The ledger was there, a digital goldmine of names, dates, and deals. Carter's team moved fast, freezing assets and issuing warrants. Marcus's empire was crumbling, but Ethan's thoughts were with Caleb. We'll find him, Carter promised. But you need to think about your daughter. Witness protection is your best option. Ethan nodded, numb. Starting over felt like betrayal to Caleb, to the life he'd built. But Lily came first. Always. Jess arrived with Lily that afternoon, her tiny arms wrapping around Ethan's neck. Daddy. She squealed, oblivious to the storm around them. Ethan held her close, tears burning his eyes. We're going to be okay, he whispered, more to himself than her. But the words felt hollow without Caleb. Carter's team tracked Marcus to a penthouse downtown. A raid was planned, and Ethan insisted on being there, despite Carter's protests. He's my brother, Ethan said. I need to know. The raid was chaos shouts, gunfire, shattering glass. Ethan waited in an armored van, his heart in his throat. When Carter emerged, her face was unreadable. We got Marcus, she said. But no sign of Caleb. Ethan's hope flickered, but he refused to let it die. He clutched Lily's dragon drawing, its green scales a reminder of her innocence, her future. He'd keep searching, no matter how long it took. As they prepared for witness protection, Ethan made a vow he'd raise Lily with love, just as he and Caleb had planned. And he'd find his brother, no matter the cost. 6 months later, Ethan and Lily were no longer Ethan and Lily. They were David and Emma, living in a small coastal town in Oregon, far from Willow Creek's ghosts. The house was modest, with a view of the ocean that calmed Ethan's restless heart. Lily emma-cased seagulls on the beach, her laughter a balm for the wounds that hadn't healed. Witness protection had been a whirlwind, new names, new IDs, a new life. Ethan worked at a bookstore, the quiet rhythm of shelving novels a stark contrast to the chaos of Chicago. But every night, as he tucked Emma in, He thought of Caleb. No word. No trace. Carter's team had found nothing. And Marcus, now in custody, refused to talk. Ethan kept the burner phone, checking it obsessively. He'd left messages for Caleb. Sent into the void, "We're safe. Come find us." He didn't know if his brother was alive, but he couldn't believe he was gone. Not again. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan sat on the porch, Emma's dragon drawing in his hands. It was creased now, worn from months of carrying it like a talisman. He traced the green scales, remembering Caleb's laugh, their shared dreams. The pain of his absence was a constant ache, but so was the love. A car pulled up, its headlights cutting through the dusk. Ethan tensed, his hand slipping to the switchblade he still carried. A figure stepped out, shadowed but familiar. Ethan's breath caught as the man approached, his face catching the porch light. "Caleb," Ethan whispered, standing. His brother looked older, thinner, his eyes carrying a weight Ethan couldn't read. "I didn't know if you'd want to see me," Caleb said, voice rough. Ethan crossed the distance in 2 steps, pulling Caleb into a hug. Tears fell, unbidden, as years of anger and love collided. "You idiot," Ethan choked out. "Where were you?" Caleb's story came in pieces. He'd escaped Marcus's men in the market, hiding in a safe house Jess had arranged. He'd stayed underground, tracking leads to ensure Marcus's network was truly dismantled. "I had to be sure you and Lily were safe," he said. "I couldn't come back until I knew." "Emma," Ethan corrected softly. "She's Emma now. And I'm David." Caleb nodded, a faint smile breaking through. "Emma. It suits her." They sat on the porch, the ocean's rhythm steadying them. Caleb told Ethan about Nate's ledger, how it had exposed not just Marcus, but a web of corruption that reached further than they'd imagined. The feds had taken down dozens, thanks to the code they'd found. "I'm sorry," Caleb said, his voice breaking. "For leaving. For everything." Ethan looked at him, seeing the brother he'd loved, the one who'd come back. "You're here now?" he said. "That's what matters." Emma ran up, her eyes wide at the stranger. "Who's that?" "Daddy." Ethan hesitated, then smiled. "This is your Uncle Caleb." Her face lit up, and she hugged Caleb's legs, fearless. Caleb knelt, tears in his eyes, and hugged her back. In that moment, Ethan saw their family broken, scarred, but whole again. They rebuilt slowly. Caleb stayed, taking a job at the docks, his presence a quiet anchor. Ethan watched him with Emma, teaching her to skip stones, his laughter echoing the boy he'd been. They never spoke of Chicago, but the weight of it lingered, a reminder of what they'd survived. One night, as Ethan tucked Emma in, she asked, "Is Uncle Caleb staying forever?" "I hope so," Ethan said, kissing her forehead. "We're family." Outside, the stars shone bright, a North Star guiding them home. Ethan didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in years, he felt hope. They'd faced the worst loss, betrayal, fear, and come through. Together. The twist no one saw coming wasn't Caleb's return, but what it meant, a chance to heal, to love, to be a family again. Ethan held on to that, tighter than any ledger, knowing it was worth everything.